There is a moment almost every parent misses because it does not look dramatic when it happens. No doors are slammed, no screaming match shakes the house, no giant crisis announces itself like a fire alarm. Your child is still there. They still answer when you call their name. They still sit at the table. They still say things like, "Fine, okay, nothing, I'm good, don't worry about it." But something has changed. They are no longer talking to you with their real thoughts. They are talking to you with safe answers. And once a child starts giving safe answers instead of honest ones, the relationship can look normal on the outside, while quietly going cold on the inside. So before we go any further, I want you to do something very simple. Picture one recent conversation with your child that felt weird. Not the worst fight, not the most painful memory, just one little moment that still lingers. A car ride, a bedtime talk, a question after school, a joke that landed wrong, a calm sentence that somehow turned into distance. Keep that moment in your mind, because by the end of this video, you may understand exactly why it happened. Because most parent-child relationships do not break from one huge betrayal. They erode through dozens of completely normal conversations. A parent thinks, "I'm helping." A child feels, "I'm being corrected." A parent thinks, "I'm guiding." A child feels, "I'm being controlled." A parent thinks, "I'm protecting." A child feels, "I'm not trusted." And that gap right there, that invisible space between intention and impact, is where emotional distance begins. This is the part that hurts, because most parents who struggle with communication are not bad parents. They're loving parents, using the wrong tools at the wrong moments. They care deeply. They worry constantly. They want strong family relationships, open communication, emotional intelligence, respect, healthy boundaries, and mentally strong kids. But wanting connection is not the same as creating it. And child psychology keeps pointing to the same hard truth. Children and teenagers open up when they feel emotionally safe, not when they feel cornered, managed, or evaluated. When a child expects a lecture, a correction, a comparison, or a disappointed face, their brain shifts out of connection and into protection. That protection can sound like silence. It can sound like sarcasm. It can sound like attitude. It can sound like, "I don't know." It can sound like, "Leave me alone." It can even sound like disrespect. But a lot of the time, what parents call disrespect is a child trying to protect their dignity, their privacy, or the last little piece of emotional control they still feel they have. And once you start seeing that, everything changes. Because now the question is no longer, "Why is my kid so difficult?" Now the better question becomes, "What does my child not feel safe enough to say?" That is a very different question. And it leads to very different parenting. The first normal mistake is asking for honesty before creating safety. This happens in almost every home. "How was school? Why are you so quiet? What happened now? Tell me the truth. You can tell me anything. Are you hiding something?" To an adult, those sound like normal parenting questions. To a child, those questions can feel like a spotlight. Because the child is not only hearing the words, they are hearing the emotional message under the words. "Give me the right answer. Do not upset me. Do not make this harder. Do not disappoint me. Explain yourself immediately." And children become experts at reading that emotional subtext long before parents realize it. They learn which topics make your face tense. They learn which feelings get dismissed. They learn which explanations make things worse. They learn when honesty becomes a lecture. They learn when vulnerability becomes a problem to solve. So, over time, they adjust. They stop lying in dramatic ways and start editing themselves in strategic ways. They tell partial truths. They offer surface details. They leave out the part that might trigger you. They choose the version of the story that costs them the least emotionally. Then parents say, "My child tells me nothing." But often the deeper truth is, my child learned that complete honesty feels expensive here. That sounds brutal, but it is also good news. Because if a pattern can be learned, it can be unlearned. The second mistake is trying to connect through control. This one hides inside good intentions all the time. Parents want to know where their child is, who they are with, what they are doing online, what happened at school, why the mood changed, why the room is messy, why the grades slipped, why the texts got shorter, why the eye contact disappeared, why the phone suddenly matters more than family dinner. And yes, parental monitoring matters. Clear expectations, regular check-ins, and knowing your teen's environment are associated with better outcomes and lower risk. But healthy monitoring works best when it is built on connection and communication, not surveillance and humiliation. That means there is a massive difference between these two energies. I care about your world, so I want to stay connected to it. And I am nervous, so I'm going to push my way into your world. Children feel that difference instantly. Especially teenagers. Teen development is full of contradiction. Teens want independence, but they still need a secure base. They want privacy, but they still need guidance. They want adults to back off, but not disappear. They want respect, but they still need boundaries. That tension is normal. It is part of healthy adolescent development, not proof that your family is failing. So when a parent responds to that tension with too much force, the teen does what any person does when autonomy feels threatened. They pull back. The more intrusive the parent becomes, the more private the teen becomes. The more suspicious the parent sounds, the more edited the teen becomes. The more controlling the parent feels, the more emotionally unavailable the teen becomes. And then both people feel rejected. Now let's talk about one of the most common ways this starts. A child comes home from school off, quiet, or irritable. The parent sees the mood and rushes in. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Are you okay? Who upset you? Talk to me. Why are you acting like this?" From the parent side, this feels like care. From the child side, after a long day of overstimulation, performance, peer pressure, social comparison, academic stress, and trying not to fall apart in public, it can feel like one more demand. Sometimes your child is not hiding a terrible secret. Sometimes they are simply fried. Sometimes the bad attitude is not a character flaw, it is a nervous system crash. Sometimes the silence is not disrespect, it is decompression. Sometimes the messy room is not rebellion, it is overload. Sometimes the phone is not the enemy, it is their fastest route to distraction, social recovery, or emotional escape. That does not mean there should be no rules. It means behavior makes more sense when you understand the state behind it. And this is where a lot of modern parenting advice gets oversimplified. People hear phrases like gentle parenting, positive parenting, emotional validation, or child-led communication, and they imagine being endlessly soft, endlessly patient, endlessly available, never firm, never direct, never saying no. That is not what healthy parenting requires. Research continues to favor parenting that combines warmth with structure, empathy with guidance, and emotional attunement with clear boundaries. In plain English, the goal is not weak parenting. The goal is steady parenting. Your child should feel two things at the same time. I am safe with this parent, and this parent can still lead me. If the first part disappears, kids hide. If the second part disappears, kids feel uncontained. The healthiest parent-child relationships do not choose one or the other. They build both. The third mistake is correcting a child while they are emotionally flooded. This is where so many conversations go from tense to toxic in under 60 seconds. A child is already upset. Their voice gets sharp. Their face closes off. Their body goes rigid. They are angry, ashamed, embarrassed, overwhelmed, or scared. And in that exact moment, the adult decides it is time for a lesson. Watch your tone. Use your words. Calm down. Why would you do that? Think before you speak. Look at me when I'm talking to you. We need to talk about your behavior right now. And I understand why parents do this. It feels urgent. It feels like if you do not deal with it immediately, you are rewarding bad behavior. It feels like leadership. But a dysregulated child is not in a learning state. In that moment, their system is focused on survival, not insight. Which means your logic, your wisdom, your life lesson, and your beautifully crafted speech are all trying to land on a nervous system that has already locked the front door. This is why timing matters so much in family communication. Not every emotional moment is a teaching moment. Some moments are just regulation moments. Sometimes the most intelligent thing a parent can say is not a lecture. It is something like this. We are not ignoring this, but we are not doing this while we're both this upset. Take a minute. I'm still here. You're allowed to be upset. You're not allowed to be cruel. We'll come back to this when your brain is back online. I'm listening, but not while we're attacking each other. That is not permissiveness. That is emotional leadership. And children trust emotional leadership far more than emotional force. Because emotional force may win the moment, but it loses honesty later. The fourth mistake is giving solutions before giving understanding. This one is so common, it almost feels invisible. Your child says school is overwhelming. You give a plan. Your teen says they feel left out. You give perspective. Your child says nobody gets them. You explain why that is not true. Your teen says they hate how they look. You rush to reassure, fix, soften, redirect. And while that comes from love, the child often hears something else. Your feeling is inconvenient. Let's get rid of it quickly. That is why emotional validation matters so much. Validation does not mean agreeing with everything your child says. It does not mean surrendering your authority. It does not mean making every emotion the center of the universe. It means letting the child feel accurately seen before you try to shape the outcome. That sounds hard. I can see why you felt embarrassed. You wanted me to understand before I started fixing it. That really got under your skin. You were already overwhelmed before I said anything else. Those kinds of responses lower shame. And when shame goes down, communication gets better. Teens are more willing to talk when they do not feel instantly judged, minimized, or corrected. And this is where many parents accidentally repeat the same exact fight for years. The surface issue changes, but the emotional pattern stays the same. It starts with a child wanting to be understood. It ends with a parent trying to fix, teach, or control too fast. The child feels unseen. The parent feels unappreciated. Both walk away hurt. If that has ever happened in your house, leave a comment with one real example. Just one. A moment when you were honestly trying to help your child, but somehow the conversation got worse instead of better. Because a lot of parents think they are alone in this, and they are not. The fifth mistake is making connection conditional on performance. This one is subtle, because most parents never say it directly. They do not say, "I only like you when you are easy." They do not say, "You are safest with me when you impress me." They do not say, "Your feelings are welcome only when they are neat, mature, and convenient." But children pick up the message anyway. They hear it when every conversation becomes about grades. They feel it when their mood is tolerated less than their achievements. They notice it when mistakes get more attention than effort. They learn it when success creates warmth and struggle creates tension. And over time, some children start managing the parent-child relationship the same way adults manage a difficult boss. They present the polished version. They hide the messy version. They become productive, impressive, agreeable, high-functioning, or emotionally blank. This is one reason family relationships can look fine from the outside while feeling lonely on the inside. The child has not stopped needing connection. They have stopped trusting that their unfiltered self is safe enough to bring into the room. And this matters far beyond one awkward conversation. Higher quality parent-child communication is linked in research to better adolescent mental health, while hostile or poor quality communication is associated with more emotional and behavioral difficulties. The effects are not magical, but they are real. Communication quality is not a small issue. It is part of the emotional climate children grow up inside. So if your child is pulling away, the answer is not to panic. Panic makes parents louder. Fear makes parents controlling. Shame makes parents defensive. And defensive parents rarely create honest children. The answer is awareness. Start noticing which version of you enters difficult conversations. The curious one, or the suspicious one. The grounded one, or the flooded one. The listening one, or the fixing one. The leader, or the prosecutor. Because your child is reacting not only to the topic, they are reacting to your state. You can say, "You can tell me anything," with a face that says, "Please do not ruin my evening." You can say, "I'm calm," with a voice full of sharp edges. You can say, "I just want to help," while radiating so much anxiety that your child instantly feels like a problem instead of a person. Kids notice that. Teens notice that even faster. And once they start expecting judgment, the distance grows quietly. They stop bringing you the small things. Then they stop bringing you the medium things. Then one day, parents wake up and realize they are the last to know the big things. That did not start with one giant moment. It started with ordinary conversations that trained a child to protect themselves. So if you want a stronger relationship with your child, stop asking only, "How do I get them to open up?" Start asking, "What happens inside them when I enter the conversation? Do they brace? Do they shrink? Do they perform? Do they defend? Or do they feel just enough safety to stay real?" Because that answer will tell you more about your parenting than any rule chart, screen time app, discipline strategy, or family speech ever will. And the good news is this can change faster than most people think. Not overnight, not with one perfect conversation, not because you found one magical parenting technique, but because children are incredibly sensitive to patterns. When your tone changes, they notice. When your timing improves, they notice. When your face softens, they notice. When you stop turning every feeling into a correction, they notice. When you keep the boundary without attacking their dignity, they notice. When you become less reactive and more steady, they notice. And that is when trust begins to come back. Not because your child suddenly becomes easier, but because your presence starts to feel safer. And once your presence feels safer, the truth has a chance to return. And this is where many parents face the most uncomfortable realization of all. The child is not only responding to what you say now, They are responding to what your pattern has trained them to expect. If your pattern has taught them that every vulnerable moment becomes a lesson, they will protect themselves. If your pattern has taught them that every mistake becomes a character judgment, they will edit themselves. If your pattern has taught them that every emotional moment becomes a debate, they will stop bringing emotion to you. And if your pattern has taught them that your love is real, but your reactions are unpredictable, they will begin to choose distance over honesty. Not because they do not love you, but because distance feels safer. That is why the repair of a parent-child relationship almost never begins with a perfect speech. It begins with a different emotional experience. A child starts to notice that when they admit something hard, the room does not explode. They notice that when they make a mistake, the first thing they see is not disgust. They notice that when they are embarrassed, the parent does not immediately start controlling the future. They notice that they can be half-formed, messy, confused, contradictory, emotional, and still remain emotionally welcome. And that is when trust stops being a word and starts becoming a lived reality. The sixth mistake parents make is turning every conversation into a verdict. This happens when parents speak as if every moment reveals who the child is forever. "You're so disrespectful. You're becoming lazy. You never listen. You always do this. You have such a bad attitude. What is wrong with you lately? You're too sensitive. You're impossible to talk to. You're just like your father. You're acting like a baby. You're selfish. You're dramatic." Those phrases may come out in moments of stress, but what makes them dangerous is that they do not address behavior. They define identity. And when a child feels that one bad moment gets turned into a statement about who they are, shame grows fast. A child can recover from being corrected. It is much harder to recover from feeling fundamentally misseen. Because identity-based language does not just say, "that behavior was a problem." It says, "you are the problem." And once a child starts to believe that, one of two things usually happens. They either fight the label by becoming more oppositional, more defensive, more aggressive, more reactive, because nobody likes being emotionally cornered into a bad identity. Or they collapse into the label. They stop trying. They become smaller, more passive, more numb, more self-critical, more willing to believe they are exactly what the parent said in the worst moment. This is why so many adults still remember a single sentence from childhood decades later. Not because the parent repeated it every day, but because identity language enters deep. And here is the tragedy. Parents often say these things not because they truly believe them, but because they are flooded, scared, exhausted, or desperate to get through to the child. But the child does not hear your hidden fear. They hear your words. So if you want to change the emotional tone of the relationship, one of the most powerful shifts is this: describe behavior. Do not define the child. Instead of, "you're rude," say, "the way you just spoke was hurtful." Instead of, "you're lazy," say, "I can see you are avoiding this, and we need to figure out why." Instead of, "you never care," say, "right now your actions are affecting other people." Instead of, "you're impossible," say, "this conversation is getting stuck, and we need a different way through it." That one shift preserves dignity, and dignity matters more than most parents realize. A child who feels corrected with dignity can stay in relationship. A child who feels corrected with contempt starts protecting themselves from you. The seventh mistake is using shame as motivation. A lot of parents do not think they use shame because they are not openly cruel. They are not screaming insults every day. They are not humiliating their child in public. They are not trying to break them. But shame has very quiet forms. "After everything I do for you, you should know better. This is embarrassing. Your brother never acted like this. You used to be such a sweet kid. I can't believe you did that. Do you know how this makes me look? I guess I'm just a terrible parent then. Fine. Do whatever you want. You always ruin everything. These kinds of statements often come from emotional overwhelm, but to a child, they create an unbearable burden. The child is no longer just dealing with a mistake, a bad choice, a rough moment, or a conflict. Now they are carrying the parent's wounded ego, disappointment, fear, or self-worth too. That is too much weight for a developing nervous system. And here is what shame actually does in most family systems. It does not create deep responsibility. It creates concealment. A child who fears shame does not become more honest. They become more strategic. A child who fears humiliation does not become more reflective. They become more avoidant. A child who fears being emotionally crushed does not become more mature. They become more defended. This is one reason some children look compliant, but are emotionally gone. They have learned how to avoid shame, not how to grow. Real growth happens when accountability and emotional safety exist together. That means a child can hear, "Yes, this matters. Yes, there is a consequence. Yes, you need to repair what happened. And no, your worst moment is not your whole identity. No, I am not withdrawing love. No, I am not here to make you feel worthless. No, you do not need to disappear in order to belong." That is what healthy authority sounds like. And if you did not grow up with healthy authority, this can feel almost unnatural at first. Because many adults were taught two false choices: either be harsh or be weak, either dominate or be ignored. Either control your child or lose them. But emotionally intelligent parenting is neither harsh nor weak. It is firm without humiliation, soft without collapsing, protective without being intrusive, respectful without surrendering leadership. That kind of parenting is powerful because it teaches children something they will carry into every future relationship. Love does not require fear. Boundaries do not require cruelty. Conflict does not require emotional destruction. Now let's talk about something parents almost never say out loud. Many parents are secretly grieving while they raise their children. They grieve the little kid who used to run to them. They grieve how simple things used to be. They grieve the version of family life they imagined. They grieve the control they thought they would have. They grieve their own childhood wounds when they see them reflected in new ways. They grieve how fast everything is changing. And if that grief stays unconscious, it comes out as irritation. It comes out as, "Why are you like this now?" It comes out as, "What happened to my sweet child?" It comes out as overreacting to independence, moodiness, secrecy, or distance. Because every one of those things feels like loss. But adolescence is not a rejection of attachment. It is a reorganization of attachment. Your child is not supposed to remain emotionally identical forever. A healthy child becomes more separate, more private, more self-defining, more peer-focused, more protective of inner space. That is not always comfortable for the parent, but it is development, not betrayal. And the parents who stay connected through this stage are usually the ones who stop trying to own the child's inner world and start becoming a respectful witness to it. That means you do not need access to every thought in order to remain close. You do not need total agreement to maintain influence. You do not need to be the center of their emotional life in order to matter deeply. In fact, some of the strongest family bonds are built when a child feels, "My parent respects my separateness without abandoning me inside it." That is an extraordinary gift. It sounds like this: "I don't need every detail, but I care about what matters to you. You can have privacy without secrecy becoming danger. I won't force closeness, but I will stay available. I can handle your growing independence without turning it into a power struggle. I can let you become more you without making it mean less love. Children feel safer with parents who can tolerate their separateness. Why? Because a parent who cannot tolerate separateness often responds with pressure. Too many questions. Too much suspicion. Too much emotional chasing. Too much personalizing. Too much panic. And panic changes the meaning of the relationship. The child no longer feels, my parent is here for me. They start to feel, my parent needs me to regulate their fear. That is a heavy role reversal, and it is one reason some children become hyper-independent very early. Not because they are exceptionally mature, but because depending on the parent feels emotionally costly. Now think about how many times family conflict is not really about the topic at all. The topic is homework. The real issue is shame. The topic is screen time. The real issue is regulation. The topic is rudeness. The real issue is feeling powerless. The topic is lying. The real issue is fear of reaction. The topic is laziness. The real issue is anxiety, perfectionism, or overwhelm. The topic is disrespect. The real issue is chronic emotional disconnection. And when parents only address the surface topic, they often create repeated conflict without real change. Because the child may adjust behavior temporarily under pressure, but the underlying need, fear, or wound stays untouched. This is why curiosity is such a powerful parenting skill. Not soft curiosity, not passive curiosity, not curiosity that avoids boundaries. I mean disciplined curiosity. What is this behavior trying to solve for my child? What feeling does this protect? What happens inside them right before this pattern appears? What does this conflict mean to them, not just to me? What am I missing because I'm focused only on control? Curiosity does not remove accountability. It makes accountability more accurate. And accurate accountability is far more effective than reactive punishment. A child who feels seen is easier to guide. A child who feels misread is harder to reach. Now I want to speak directly to the parents who are thinking, this all sounds good, but what about real disrespect? What about manipulation? What about laziness, entitlement, explosive behavior, phone obsession, lying, school refusal, constant moodiness, or the child who seems to reject everything? That question matters, because not every difficult behavior is a cry for help in the sentimental sense. Sometimes behavior is ugly. Sometimes kids are unfair. Sometimes they test limits relentlessly. Sometimes they imitate the worst parts of their environment. Sometimes they act selfishly, impulsively, dishonestly, or aggressively. Understanding the emotional meaning of behavior does not mean pretending harmful behavior is fine. But here is the difference between skillful parenting and reactive parenting. Reactive parenting says, this behavior is unacceptable, so I will become bigger, louder, sharper, and more punishing. Skillful parenting says, this behavior is unacceptable, so I will become clearer, steadier, and more intentional. One escalates, the other leads. One says, your behavior is making me lose control. The other says, your behavior is exactly why I need to stay in control of myself. That second posture is what changes families, because children borrow regulation from adults for years before they can consistently generate it themselves. So when the adult loses emotional control every time the child struggles, the lesson the child absorbs is not self-regulation. It is emotional contagion. But when the adult can hold the boundary while staying grounded, something very powerful happens. The child discovers that conflict does not automatically destroy connection. The child learns that hard feelings can be survived. The child sees that intensity does not have to become chaos. The child experiences authority that is not humiliating, and over time, that becomes part of how they learn to regulate themselves. This is one of the hidden secrets behind strong family relationships. Children do not only learn from what you teach when everyone is calm. They learn from who you become when things get hard. Do you become mocking, cold, explosive, controlling, helpless, sarcastic, moralizing, withdrawn? Or do you become slower, clearer, more grounded, more boundaried, more emotionally literate, more intentional with your timing, your tone, your facial expression, your words? Because that is the version of you they will remember in their nervous system. And yes, that can feel like pressure, but it can also be freeing. Because it means the future of the relationship does not depend on having a perfect child. It depends much more on the emotional climate you keep creating, repairing, and reinforcing. And repair matters enormously. Let's talk about that, because repair is where so many parents either transform the relationship or miss the chance completely. A lot of adults think repair means saying sorry and moving on, and sometimes it does start there. But real repair is more specific. It means naming what happened accurately. It means owning your part without making the child comfort you. It means showing that you understand the emotional impact, not just the visible event. It means changing the pattern, not just regretting it. That sounds like this. I was trying to help, but I came in too strong. You were already overwhelmed, and I made it feel worse. I kept asking questions when what you needed was space first. I was so focused on your behavior that I missed what you were feeling. I let my fear turn into control. I still need to hold the boundary, but I want to do it without making you feel attacked. That is a powerful moment for a child, because now the parent is modeling something rare: strength without defensiveness. Children do not lose respect for parents who repair honestly. They often trust them more. Why? Because repair proves that power and humility can live in the same person. And that is deeply reassuring. Now stay with me, because we're moving into the final stretch, and this is the part most people never hear until it's too late. Many parents spend years trying to get better behavior, without realizing their child is starving for one deeper experience: to feel emotionally safe while being fully known. Not perfectly known, not constantly analyzed, not endlessly questioned. Just known enough to feel, I do not have to hide the most human parts of myself in order to stay connected here. That feeling changes everything. A child who feels emotionally safe is more likely to admit mistakes sooner, more likely to ask for help, more likely to recover after conflict, more likely to tolerate boundaries, more likely to trust guidance, more likely to bring their real life to the parent before a small problem becomes a bigger one. And a child who does not feel emotionally safe may still function, they may still achieve, they may still perform, they may still smile in photos, but inside, they will increasingly build their inner world somewhere else. And that is what many parents are really afraid of when they say, I feel like I'm losing my child. So if you want to stop that drift, do not begin by trying to say the perfect thing. Begin by changing the emotional pattern they have to survive when they are with you. Slow down your first reaction. Make your face safer. Ask fewer loaded questions. Do not chase every silence. Do not turn every mood into a mystery to solve. Do not make every mistake mean something catastrophic about their future. Do not confuse your anxiety with intuition. Do not use closeness as a disguise for control. Do not force openness by making privacy feel dangerous. Do not turn your child into the manager of your fear. Instead, become the kind of presence that can hold truth without crushing it. And if this video has put words to something you have been feeling but could not explain, subscribe to the channel and share this with one person who truly cares about children, family relationships, and how psychology shapes the home. Not because we need another perfect parent online, but because more families need language for what is really happening behind the silence. Because once you understand that shutdown is often protection, that disrespect can hide shame, that distance can hide fear, and that control can quietly destroy trust, you cannot unsee it. And that is a good thing, because seeing clearly is where better parenting begins. Not perfect parenting, better parenting. The kind where a child can feel your authority without losing their dignity. The kind where boundaries stay firm without love feeling fragile. The kind where honesty becomes easier because reaction becomes safer. The kind where your child does not have to choose between being real and being close to you. That is the goal. Not a child who never struggles. Not a teen who tells you everything. Not a home with zero conflict. Not some fantasy family where every conversation becomes a healing breakthrough. The real goal is simpler and deeper than that. When life gets hard for your child, does your presence feel like pressure or shelter? That single question can change the way you parent forever. Because children do not remember every rule. They do not remember every lecture. They do not remember every logical point you tried to make. But they do remember how their body felt around you when they were vulnerable. Did they feel cornered? Did they feel ashamed? Did they feel managed? Did they feel mocked? Did they feel too much? Did they feel alone while standing right in front of you? Or did they feel that even in conflict, even in limits, even in consequences, they were still emotionally safe enough to stay real? That memory becomes part of them. It becomes part of how they handle closeness, how they handle mistakes, how they handle authority, how they handle conflict, how they handle love. And one day, without even noticing it at first, they carry that emotional blueprint into friendships, intimacy, work, marriage, and the way they may someday speak to their own children. That is why this matters so much. A difficult conversation at the kitchen table is never just a difficult conversation. It is also training. Training for trust. Training for honesty. Training for shame. Training for regulation. Training for what connection feels like when emotions get intense. So the next time your child goes quiet, do not ask only, how do I get them to talk? Ask, what would make this moment feel safe enough for truth to come closer? And the next time they get sharp, defensive, rude, or closed off, do not ask only, how do I shut this down fast? Ask, what is happening underneath this that I need to lead well? And the next time you feel your own fear rising, your own anger climbing, your own urge to control the whole moment, pause long enough to remember this. Your child does not need a perfect parent in that moment. They need a regulated one. They need someone strong enough not to humiliate them, clear enough not to confuse them, steady enough not to collapse into guilt, panic, or rage, and loving enough to protect the relationship while still protecting the boundary. That is what builds trust. That is what keeps connection alive. That is what helps children grow into people who can tell the truth without feeling they're risking love. And if you can begin there, really begin there, then the conversation you remembered at the start of this video may look very different now. Not because your child changed overnight, but because now you can see what was really happening in the silence.